What are you most concerned about for humanity today as a species?
Yes. When human beings were only armed with swords and spears, we weren't likely to wipe each other out. When we were only armed with machine guns and rifles and pistols, we weren't going to wipe each other out. But today, we have many nations in the world that have nuclear weapons. And when I look around the very low quality of leadership around the world, I see these powers, effectively the powers of a god. That's what a nuclear power is. It can destroy the whole of human civilization. But they have very low-level consciousness, these individuals, very low-level consciousness. And so I compare it to the powers of the gods in the hands of petulant teenagers who are angry with one another and seeking to pick a fight. This is a very dangerous situation that we have today. And the only solution to it is going to be an overall elevation in consciousness, that people have to become more aware of what is going on. And that we have to stop our leaders recklessly seeking wars and seeking to destroy one another, because sooner or later those wars will go non-conventional and they will go nuclear, and then our story is over. As far as I know, I talk about civilizations in the past, but as far as I know, we are the first human civilization that has the power to wipe ourselves out completely. We don't need some comet impact on the Earth. We don't need some massive solar outburst. We can do it ourselves. And what horror that would be, and what a shame that would be, if after all these years the universe has gifted us this beautiful, beautiful home to live on, planet Earth, and has gifted us the opportunity to grow and develop as beings on this earth. What a pity if we wipe it all out because we've got the psychology of angry teenagers instead of the psychology of fully conscious, evolved adults, which is what is needed, and a fully conscious, involved adult leadership around the world. And when I say adult, I'm talking about the state of their consciousness, not their physical age. If we're going to continue as a species, that's what we need. And maybe we invest too much power in leaders, and maybe what's needed for the future is less leadership and more individual awakening. And that is actually where I hold my most optimistic and best hope for the future, is that there is a kind of war around consciousness going on in the world today, but there is evidence that more and more people are awakening to consciousness and are resisting the notion that big government has the right to control every aspect of our lives, and wish to take responsibility for their own actions. They don't want government to be the responsible, and we have personal responsibility for everything, and that includes the way our governments behave. And if they're allowed to behave that's because we've put them in a position where they can behave that way. So this rise in consciousness, and I do see it, particularly amongst younger people today, a growing awakening, a willingness to resist narratives that are forced upon them. That's, I think, the best hope for humanity.
Yeah, love it, love it. One last question.
Sure.
And it might be the most tricky one, and you can pass if you'd like, but my question for you is, what is God to Graham Hancock as you're today?
Yeah, a work in progress, as all human lives are. I was brought up in a Christian family. I was eventually, after we returned from India, I was sent to a boarding school, a Christian boarding school. It was a horrific experience. My first real act of rebellion was refusing to kneel down in the chapel during prayers, and something else. My mum and dad lost two of my siblings in India. In fact, I'm the only survivor of three siblings. One was born before me, and stillborn. Then I was born, and I'm still here. And then my sister Susan was born in South India. She lived for a year and died. And then my brother Jimmy was born in South India. He lived for a year and died. And we were living amongst a Christian community in South India, actually at the Christian Medical College in Vellore in Tamil Nadu. And amongst that community, there were people who went to my mum and told her that she is losing these children because she has committed a sin. She has committed some kind of sin, and this is God punishing her. And that was the moment that my mum went from being a staunch Christian to being an atheist, literally overnight. And I would say for quite a long period of my life, with my own rebellion against that kind of thing, I would have defined myself as an atheist. Now, what does an atheist mean? It means without God, somebody who does not believe in God. And to that extent, perhaps I'm still an atheist, because I don't believe in a single individual God figure. I think that's a fairy tale. I don't believe that at all. But I do believe in a universe imbued with mystery. I do think that spirit is the essence of human beings, not our physical bodies. I do think there's far more beyond this life. We're part of a huge project. It's not an accident that consciousness has had the opportunity to grow on this planet. And we have to fulfill that obligation. So I think that I would define myself as a spiritual person, but not as a religious person. Because what is religion apart from a series of dogmas that we are taught to accept as true? And that in past ages, you could be burnt at the stake if you disagreed with it. Well, not burnt at the stake today, but it's still very controlling. This is the truth. This is the narrative. You must believe this. That has been very harmful and has prevented individuals from developing their own sense of spirituality. So I think we are going to see a change in this respect, and that people in the future are going to be embracing spirituality more. And when I say spirituality, I just mean that there is much more to reality than our physical selves, than our physical bodies, and that we need to free ourselves from the dogmas of the past if we're ever to experience that directly. And I think, quite successfully freed myself from religious dogma. It has no place in my life. It doesn't mean that I don't regard books like the Bible as extremely interesting and full of very, very useful and important material. But personally speaking, I don't believe in that there's one sort of father figure God who has made all of this. I think it's much more complicated than that. Nevertheless, the creation of life is a fascinating mystery. How life suddenly appeared on this planet, first in the form of bacteria containing the DNA, RNA system that is still fundamental to life on Earth. If there were such a thing as a God, that entity would have been wise, would not have been able, certainly would have been wise not to create human beings just suddenly out of nothing. We live on a planet, and the planet has its own environment, and we have to evolve to work within that environment. But what we see from the first bacterial life about 3.9 billion years ago is a process where it's become more and more and more and more complex. It's called evolution. So bottom line, I know that many who are staunch believers in the Abrahamic God are opposed to the notion of evolution. But if there were such a thing as a God, that entity would use evolution as a process in his or her creation. Because you can't control every factor in the universe. The Earth is constantly subject to sudden changes, and life has to be able to bounce back. And the best example of that is the extinction of the dinosaurs 66 million years ago. Life bounced back. That was when mammals came into our own. The first mammals, they were going nowhere 66 million years ago. I mean, how could they compete with dinosaurs? But they very rapidly, after the dinosaurs were gone, they very rapidly began to fill every niche across this planet. And that would not have happened if the dinosaurs had not been made extinct, and if there were not such a thing as evolution. So I don't see evolution as contradicting the idea of a deity at all. But personally, I don't think one deity is the answer. I think it's actually much bigger, much more mysterious, much deeper, much more problematic than that.